In the ruthless deserts of the Wild West, one man's choice changed two lives forever. A lonely rancher, a hunted Apache girl, and a love the frontier could never accept. This is not just a story of survival, it's a story of courage and forbidden compassion. Like, subscribe, and stay till the end for a tale that will stay with you. Let's get started. In the dry silence of the Arizona Territory, 1878, a lonely rancher named Caleb Moore rode home at dusk. The sun bled red along the horizon, casting long shadows across the cracked earth. Caleb had lived alone for years, trusting the land more than people. Out here, kindness was rare, and fear ruled most men's hearts. His horse slowed near an old cottonwood tree, its branches creaking softly in the evening wind. Something about the stillness felt wrong, as if the desert itself was holding its breath, waiting for him to notice what others had chosen to ignore. As Caleb rode closer, his heart tightened. Hanging against the rough bark was a young Apache girl, her hands bound, her body weak but still breathing. A rope cut into her wrists, and her head hung low with exhaustion. From the rope dangled a crude wooden sign, the words carved deep and angry, "White man don't forgive." It was not just a message of hatred, but a threat, meant to remind both natives and settlers of the cruelty that ruled this land. Caleb felt shame burn in his chest. For a long moment, Caleb stayed frozen in his saddle. He knew what this meant. Helping her would make him a traitor in the eyes of nearby settlers and a target for the soldiers. Most men would have turned away, pretending they saw nothing. But Caleb had seen too much violence already. Slowly, he dismounted, cut the rope with his knife and caught her before she collapsed. Her body was light, trembling, like a wounded bird afraid to trust the hands holding it. As her feet touched the ground, the girl gasped softly, eyes opening in panic. She tried to pull away, fear filling her dark eyes. Caleb spoke gently, though he knew she might not understand his words. He wrapped his coat around her shoulders, shielding her from the cold night air. In that moment, no rancher, no Apache, no enemy existed. Only two human beings standing between life and death in a lawless land. Caleb carried her to his horse and rode hard toward his ranch, constantly looking back, expecting riders to appear from the dust. Every sound felt louder, every shadow dangerous. He knew rumors would spread quickly. A lone rancher helping an Apache girl was a crime in itself, yet with every mile, his resolve grew stronger. He told himself that if the Wild West had stolen its humanity, then saving one life was his way of taking it back. At the ranch, Caleb laid her on his small bed and cleaned her wounds with water and cloth. She watched him closely, silent, unsure whether this kindness was real or another trick. Her skin bore marks of hardship, but her spirit was unbroken. When he offered her water, her hands shook as she drank. Their eyes met briefly, and in that look, Caleb saw gratitude mixed with deep-rooted fear, a fear taught by years of cruelty. The night passed slowly. Coyotes howled in the distance, and the wind rattled the wooden walls of the cabin. Caleb sat nearby, rifle resting against the wall, guarding her as if she were his own. He thought about the sign, about the words carved by hate, and wondered how many innocent lives had been destroyed by those beliefs. He realized then that loneliness had protected him from becoming cruel, allowing compassion to survive where others had lost it. By morning, the girl was stronger. She spoke her name softly, Ayana, though words failed them, understanding did not. Caleb knew he could not keep her forever. The land would not allow it. Still, for that brief time, beneath the endless Arizona sky, two souls found a moment of peace. In a world ruled by fear and revenge, Caleb had chosen mercy, and that choice would change him forever. Caleb hid the Apache girl in his ranch cabin, tending her wounds in careful silence. He cleaned dried blood from her wrists and wrapped fresh cloth around the rope burns. Ayana watched him closely, flinching at sudden movements, yet she did not resist. The cabin was small, smelling of wood smoke and dust, but it felt safer than the open land. Caleb spoke softly, more to calm himself than her. Though she barely understood his language, his tone carried meaning. In that quiet space, trust began not with words, but with patience. Ayana's eyes held stories no language could fully explain. They reflected loss, carved deep by violence, families torn apart, and nights spent running from men with guns and uniforms. Sometimes she stared at the fire for long minutes, as if watching memories burn and disappear. Caleb never asked questions. He sensed that forcing her to speak would only reopen wounds. Instead, he offered water, food, and distance when she needed it. Slowly, her breathing eased. Slowly, fear loosened its grip, replaced by cautious awareness that not all kindness was a lie. Days passed in uneasy calm. Caleb brought herbs, bread, and warm soup, placing them near her before stepping back. At night, he slept lightly, listening for horses or gunshots. Outside, the territory buzzed with rumors. Soldiers rode through nearby towns, asking questions, flashing badges of authority that carried threats behind polite smiles. Settlers whispered about punishment for anyone hiding an Apache. Caleb heard it all and said nothing. Each lie he told protected Ayana, but each one tightened the noose around his own future. Inside the cabin, a fragile peace grew. Ayana began to help with small tasks, sweeping the floor, stitching torn fabric with skilled hands. Sometimes their fingers brushed, and both pulled back, surprised by the warmth of simple human contact. In the evenings, Caleb played a quiet tune on an old harmonica. The sound was imperfect, but it made Ayana smile for the first time. That smile stayed with Caleb long after the music faded, reminding him why he chose compassion over safety. Caleb no longer saw an enemy before him. He saw a woman whose dreams had been stolen by violence she never chose. He imagined what her life might have been: laughter around a fire, stories passed down through generations, a future unbroken by fear. Ayana, in turn, began to see beyond the color of his skin. To her, Caleb was not a white man shaped by cruelty, but a protector who risked everything to save a stranger. In each other, they found proof that humanity still survived. Yet reality pressed closer with every sunrise. One afternoon, distant gunfire echoed across the plains. Caleb knew the soldiers were narrowing their search. Keeping Ayana any longer would mean death for them both. The decision tore at him, but he did not hide the truth. Using simple words and gestures, he explained she must return to her people. Ayana's eyes filled with understanding and sorrow. She nodded slowly, accepting the cruelty of timing, knowing survival often demanded painful goodbyes. Before dawn, Caleb saddled a horse and packed food, water, and a small knife. He gave her his compass, a symbol of direction when the land tried to confuse the soul. Ayana touched his hand, pressing her forehead to it in silent gratitude. No promises were spoken. They both knew words would only weaken their resolve. When she mounted the horse, the desert stretched wide and unforgiving, yet it was the only path left open to her. As Ayana rode into the distance, dust rising behind her like a fading memory, she turned back once. In her eyes, Caleb saw gratitude, love, and sorrow intertwined. He stood there long after she disappeared, feeling the weight of loss settle into his chest. The Wild West did not allow happy endings, only moments of truth. Caleb returned to his cabin alone, forever changed. He had lost her, but he had found something greater, the courage to choose love in a world built on fear.